Hey there gamers, welcome to your source for Diablo 4 news. My name's Luco, and today we're talking about patch 1.0.3, a massive update to the game that was released Tuesday, June 27th, 2023. The update brings many important changes and buffs to the game, but perhaps the single most important change in these patch notes is this. Players can now teleport to their nightmare dungeons directly from the map. As the developers promised in their recent campfire chat, they have already delivered this much-needed quality of life change to make Nightmare Dungeons more competitive with spamming normal dungeons for experience. All you have to do to try this yourself is activate a Nightmare Sigil from anywhere in the game, open your map, click the icon that marks the location of the dungeon, and accept the prompt that pops up. That change alone makes Nightmare Dungeons feel far more fun than they were, but the developers didn't stop there. On top of the massive efficiency boost of teleportation, they also significantly increased the experience gain from monster kills specifically inside of Nightmare Dungeons, as well as the XP bonus for completing them. I personally ran 2 Nightmare Dungeons between the release of the patch and the recording of this video. Both were even with my level at 92. I ran them without a potion XP bonus, and I still gained almost 25% of the XP that I needed to hit level 93. I also got a Tempest Roar as the reward from my second one, which was kinda nice. Nightmare Dungeons weren't the only things that got buffed, because Helltide chests have also been changed to give substantially increased experience when opened. Additionally, the patch notes say, and I quote, "The Helltide roaming bosses will now more consistently drop higher quality loot." I assume this means Kixarth, that roaming assassin guy with 5 billion health or whatever it is, but this may also include Helltide Harbingers, or it may imply that there are more Helltide bosses that we haven't seen yet. Either way, someone will be dropping better loot. There were no specific changes made to the monster density in any section of the game for today's patch, but there was a note included among the other changes stating that the developers were actively working on increasing the monster and elite density in endgame content, with plans to introduce the changes early in Season 1. Next up, the patch notes included a long list of changes made to all 5 classes in the game. The majority of changes were focused on increasing the effectiveness of basic skills so they would feel slightly better to use in combat. Most basic skills across all classes received a slight buff to their damage and the amount of resources they generate, while a select few received minor changes to their associated passive bonuses. While the main focus of this balance pass was on basic skills, a few other abilities and legendary aspects in each class were given some buffs to bring them more in line with competing options. Starting with Barbarian, we'll run through the major changes to each class, and if you want to see the full details of these changes, you can find a link to the patch notes in the description of this video. First of all, Kick had its cooldown reduced and its damage for knocking enemies into terrain increased. The size of the barrier gained from Iron Skin was doubled. The cooldown of Iron Maelstrom was significantly reduced, and bonuses to the critical strike chance and damage from the Prime Iron Maelstrom passive were significantly increased. Bounding Slam also had a massive increase to its base damage. As for Barbarian legendary aspects, Volcathos, Earthquake, Dust Devils, Windlasher, and Devilish all had their flat damage values increased, while Iron Warrior received a buff to its damage reduction. Up next are the buffs to Druid. The cooldown of Wolf's active ability was reduced, and the lucky hit chance of the Ferocious Wolfpack passive was quadrupled. Hurricane gained a massive bonus to its base damage. Rabies now deals significantly more poisoning damage, and Cataclysm, Lacerate, and Pummel all received moderate bonuses to their base damage. There were changes made to 4 of the Druid's legendary aspects. Runeworker's Conduit and Blurred Beast both had a damage increase. Mangled had its proc chance increased, and Seismic Shift's cooldown was reduced. For the Necromancer, Bone Prison had a slight reduction to its cooldown. Bone Spikes and Iron Maiden gained significant bonuses to their base damage, and Necromancer minions will now always engage targets with a cast curse. For Necromancer legendary aspects, Bursting Bone had a major flat damage increase, Flesh Rending had its essence generation doubled, and Fast Blood had its ultimate cooldown reduction significantly increased. Up next, Rogue's changes include Volley's base damage was heavily increased, Smoke Grenade's cooldown was slightly reduced, and Rain of Arrows' cooldown was also slightly reduced, while the imbuement potency of the Prime Rain of Arrows passive was significantly increased. The only 2 rogue legendary aspects to be changed are Escape Artist, which had its cooldown reduced by more than half, and Umbrus, which received a bonus to its lucky hit chance. Finally, we have the changes to the Sorcerer. Blizzard had a minor base damage increase, Lightning Spear had a major buff to its maximum damage bonus, Crackling Energy received a moderate increase to its base damage, and Freezing Wake had its base damage nearly doubled. Sorcerer's changed legendary aspects were Abundant Energy with an increased chance to chain between enemies. Singed Extremities now has a heavier slow. Incendiary now restores mana more often. Snow Guards has more damage reduction, and Concentration now gives significantly higher mana regeneration. Along with all of those quality of life and balance changes, the developers have also listed more than 60 bugs across all aspects of the game that have been resolved with the update. Those are the major changes in this patch. Like I said earlier, if you want to see all of the details of everything in the update, then you can find a link to the full patch notes in the description of this video. That's it for today's Diablo 4 news update. Thank you for watching. I'm gonna go grind Nightmare Dungeons now.